Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I'm Emily, and with me is the beautiful Katie Hamilton. And we're just coming on again for another episode in our series on dissolving pain and shame. And today, Katie and I are going to just speak about and share some kind of relevant, recently activating experiences that are just like, kind of alive for us in this moment, or, have been recently. So we attended a retreat event this past weekend, a women's retreat on like dissolving ego programs, I guess. And we're wanting to just share a little bit about our experience and talk a little bit about the nitty gritty details of what we came here to do, which is exactly what our title says, dissolving pain and shame. So yeah, today we're just gonna get real and jump in and share some interesting experiences that we've been having over the last few days, and hopefully you can relate or see how some of the things are impacting your life, and just get to see and understand things from like a new perspective. I think that's really really important. So that's the first step to change, and we're just gonna jump in and start giving you the goods.
Emily,
take it away, Katie Hamilton.
I was gonna interview you for a moment here.
Okay, good.
So, Emily, you went to this retreat. I was at it with you. It was awesome. And though I know personally, I went for like, I'm good. I don't need any more unwinds. I'm free right now. I don't have anything big triggers. I don't have any big limiting beliefs. I've excavated most of them. I'm just here to relax and listen to singing bowls. Little did I know. Oh, I love it. So let's just get right into it. What was the trigger that you used for getting to the goal? Like what was real and emotional for you that inspired you to unwind that story? You want to share about the story?
Sure. So yeah, I had gone into the weekend feeling quite disconnected from my love, from my heart, from my openness, just from feeling good. And that was kind of my intention going into it. I knew, I know the work that we do there. So I knew that it was like going to transmute and transform that for me. So yeah, I went in and got really clear about what I wanted to play with, as Kathy would say, or work with, I guess you could say. And one of the main things that was coming up for me was this feeling of, or this experience of being constantly corrected or criticized or like kind of picked at, right? Or like scrutinized and really like looked at, and like with that, I don't know, that feeling of, like, I guess criticism, like you need to do this differently, or you need to change, or, there's something that you're doing wrong or whatever. And so that's kind of something that I've worked with throughout my life. And I really wanted to bring that forward and play with that this weekend. So that's kind of the story that arose to work with. And yeah, it was a really interesting outcome.
So
yeah.
Before going to the outcome, so this like emotional response comes up when, so say I was to like correct you on something, right? You get this emotional response. So before going to all of what that feels like, or maybe if you want to share a little bit about what comes up in you, like the actual emotions, like what are some of the emotions you feel if someone's to sort of lend advice or, ask you to do something differently, or yeah.
So there's a trigger in me that occurs. So I get activated emotionally in my body. and I feel defensiveness, and I feel frustration, because it, like, my story is that, like, I just want to be free to be myself and be expressed and be happy and safe doing that, and I don't want any, like, external impingements on that, or constrictions or restrictions or limitations, and like an environment where that feels unsafe to do. So there's defensiveness, there's frustration, there's resentment, there's and when I get defensive, I often get like offensive. So there's like, offensive energy that comes, that I often act within, or act out, you could say. So yeah, there's frustration, anger, and those are not, I know those are kind of like the superficial immediate ones, and then underneath that there's sadness and shame. There's shame, yeah, underneath all of those things.
Thanks, and just even talking about like emotions and feelings can be vulnerable. It can be like it's a thing, just even naming them, and actually even naming the emotion, because often we're naming another judgment, right? Or like an action of something else, but not the actual emotion. So frustration, I'm sure people can relate to that. So I think it's helpful for us to get into the details of the actual emotions that are triggered. So thanks for sharing that. And then what did it bring you to? What was the belief? What was the underlying belief and program that's running, that's being poked? You want to share that?
Sure. So it's like, if somebody's correcting me, or if somebody's criticizing me, scrutinizing me, whatever that kind of energy, it means that I am bad or I am wrong.
Which is the definition of shame.
Yeah.
Or of shame is I am bad and I am wrong.
Yeah.
Like holistically, not my behavior, but the core of my being.
Yeah.
Is bad and
I
wrong.
am. That's a big statement. Those are powerful words to use together. And anytime we make this equal something like that, it's like, of course, there's going to be a response from our system that comes online, right? Like there's like a defensiveness, and there's like, first of all, it's like, I don't want to feel that, right? I don't want to feel the pain of that shame. And so I will defend myself from needing to feel that, right? And I will either fight, or I will withdraw, or I will move away from, avoid the person, place, or thing that's attempting to point me in that direction. And that's kind of what this work is all about, right? It's like using your environment, your relationships, your experiences as a kind of an arrow that points you in the direction of these underlying things that have been there for our whole life, usually, or like at some point in our life, we've taken these beliefs or programs on. And so that's like one of the beautiful gifts of the people in our world or our life experiences, that if we can, adopt that higher perspective and move through life like that, then we can use that as feedback for us, and it can actually point us to like the pot of gold. And that's what I feel like happened with this one.
That's a big one. That is a big one. And I mean, I would put a lot of money that most humans on earth have that running in their system, because this is a shame-based inverted matrix. And at the core of the inverted matrix is the biggest lie of all, which is I am bad and I am wrong. And when we feel that, we can be manipulated to do whatever that person wants us to do, so that we can avoid feeling bad and wrong. And that is a lot of how most of us have been raised in shame-based households.
It's essentially the opposite of being God, right? God is love, God is perfection, God is beauty, God is life, and you're looking at some like a statement that's basically anti-life, right? It's if you were God, if you were connected to God in that place, you would know that that's an absolute illusion and lie and deception and inversion of the actual truth, right? Is the opposite of the truth.
Yeah.
And those are the places within us that need to be brought into wholeness, that we need to become aware of, so that we can bring that back into alignment with our God self, and therefore dissolve these things, so that we don't actually need to keep creating these experiences in our external environment.
Exactly. And I don't know about you, but like I've been dealing with shame. I am bad and wrong programs over the last couple months. And I noticed a self-sabotage inner being that responds to my shame. And I start to hide. I say no to social engagements. I've been binging on cookie dough. I haven't done that in probably over a decade. And so these old habits, and it's the last attempt of my shame and my ego to pull me back. It wants full domination over me. And I'm like literally about to just walk away from it forever. And so it's just this last attempt. And how cool is that? Because it's like the microcosm of the last attempt of the old dinosaurs that are falling, and they're so ancient and they're so old, and they know that they do not exist in the new world, new earth, new world. And it's the same with our shame, because the shame is the thing that is the thread through all of it. And so I was just like, wow, I'm watching myself revert back to like all these habits I thought I was done with. And, you know, I have beautiful support system. And one of my support systems was like, be so gentle, because this is not, you are not of this. This is like, literally, if you just turn a little bit to the left, you're going to see all the love and light and multidimensional soul self that you are. This is its last attempt. And so knowing that, I was like, no, thank you. You know, and I'm coming back to the self-love and not believing the messages of shame, because around my shame body is a whole lot of self-sabotage.
Oh yeah. And I believe that those two things you cannot separate. They go hand in hand. Like if you have shame, it's like a deep, I mean, it's a program, which I am bad or I am wrong. And what does that mean? That means like, you don't deserve love. You don't deserve anything good, you know? And so your ego wants to continue to prove that to you, right? And make itself right. So it will literally sabotage all the good things in your life. It will remind you how unlovable you are. It will, you know, and it will have you acting in ways that, yeah, you do push love away. You do, you know, hurt or harm yourself in certain ways, whether it's through cookie dough or alcohol or, you know, online gambling or whatever it is, you know, like it could be anything, but like it's something that's kind of like an impulse in you. Maybe you don't really understand it because you don't have control over it. And it's just like, I don't know why I'm drawn to this, or I don't know why I do these things. I don't want to do these things. I know they're unhealthy or not contributing goodness to my life. It's like more of a like destruction energy, like addictions, right? We wanted to bring that into the mix too, right?
Here it is.
The self-sabotage, the shame, which then generates that self-sabotage, will find many ways, and addiction is one of those ways. And so if we're really deep in addiction, there's lots of shame underneath that. And the addiction will, you know, if you ever confront somebody who's got an addiction, like even if it's chocolate, even if it's, you know, something like kind of simple or kind of like not as destructive, there's a lot of defensiveness around that. There's a lot of protection around that. There's a lot of denial, right? It's like we have to have that thing, because if not, those feelings of shame begin to arise. And that's really, shame is probably one of the most painful things to feel. It's also the lowest on the vibrational spectrum of emotions. So like once you're getting down to the shame, you're like really getting to like the bottom of the barrel root stuff. And that's where huge transformation can happen. But there's so much ego avoidance to get to actually admitting that, to seeing that, to getting there, to accepting that. There will be a million distractions, and yeah, just like ways that things that arise to take you from that realization or that acknowledgement or seeing that like accurately and truly. So once, you know, and so many people, and I used to be like this too. I don't know if you were like this, Katie, but like I used to be like, oh, I don't have any shame. I don't have any shame. I don't feel any shame at all. Right. And it's like there's so many layers between where you think you are and what's actually there, you know. But like I said, once you start like really, I don't know, like having the courage, I guess, and removing the blocks to that, which, you know, we've both spent years doing, right? Then we make ourselves able to access that, and we get to clean out the bottom dirty layers of our consciousness. And this is a real powerful one. So
this is what you said is true. This is the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
This is the core seed of I'm undeserving, right? Of like all of the other root beliefs that I have is seeded first in I am bad and wrong.
Yeah.
And from that place of being, you know, parented and, you know, being deeply parented by that place, like it damaged my psyche deeply. and I realized in this like now moment, I realized like I just saw my entire life of self-sabotage. I just saw it like a video. I was like a movie. I was like, holy fuck. Like, I think most of my resonance has been immersed in shame and self-sabotage. Mm-hmm. And the freedom of that, like what is to come on the other side of that is so expansive and so accurate to who I am as a multidimensional, powerful soul and being. And it's like very enlivening. I feel the giddiness in it because I can just feel the last remnants disintegrating and dissolving of that seed. And, you know, Tom Canyon, who's a really integrous, beautiful channel of the Hathors, Mary Magdalene came to him and said, my story is being like bastardized in humanity, people who are channeling it. And will you, I believe in you, you're a pure source, channel my story of my relationship between myself and Yeshua. And there was so much goodness in that. But the one thing that stood out, and I read this book like 4 years ago, the one thing that stood out was her like very pointed energy that said, if there's anything you take from this book and this share that I've brought forth through Tom Canyon, it is this: dissolve your shame. Completely dissolve your shame.
Yeah.
And I took that very seriously. And that was in Hawaii 4 years ago. And ever since then, I have brought forward all of my shame to myself, to see it with myself, and then in my God eyes, dissolve it. And
well, it's coming up whether we want to see it or not.
Right? It's coming up whether we want to see it or not, but also to like take responsibility for it, because even if it comes up, I could dig my heels in. I could stay true to my self-sabotage behavior. I could like ignore it if I wanted. And I see that in other people, and they're digging a hole deeper into it. Right? So it is a choice. It is a responsibility. And I'd much prefer to live without it than the ickiness and everything around it. Right? But in just speaking about addictions, what's interesting in the self-help world and like the new age sort of like mentality is like, we can't treat the addiction. You got to go to the source. So it's like, if you're dealing with addiction, yes, there's support you can get for it. But unless you go to the source and clear the shame and clear the root belief, that addiction will always be coming back to you. Because on some level, you're going to try to distract from the pain of feeling bad and wrong at the core of your being and believing you deserve punishment, because self-sabotage is punishment. It's self-punishment. It's like bending over and taking the whip and saying, I deserve it. Give me the punishment. And that's, again, how the psyche of humans are kept in slavery and kept in doing things that they don't want to do on a higher level that they know is not right for them, but they keep doing it. Because of that feeling the deserving of punishment, or undeserving of love, undeserving of dreams. And I know you and I are deeply in like relationship with that belief of undeserving, to continue to open the doors for receivership of what we truly deserve in our divine rightful place.
Yeah.
And that is like such an like, I'm so honored to walk this path with you and to have sisters and brothers that are like, you know, doing this work and to anchor these new codes so that we can show people like, we're no different. We gone through the mud. We're human. We're flesh. And if we can do it, you can do it. Because I can't imagine a place with no shame. And I think the more we allow ourselves to dream of a life without shame, things are going to change instantly in our outer reality. Instantly.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. It's like I said, it's the lowest on the totem pole. And as we move out of this like extreme polarity that we're in, and we kind of collapse the duality that's playing out right now and the polarity that's really extreme, we'll be able to access like a higher level of emotion, and that won't be available to us anymore. But it doesn't just magically happen. We have to really put in the work. So I'd love to just continue sharing about some really big aha moments during that process that I was going through this weekend, and yeah, sharing some insights that I got on that.
Yes, please.
I like when you interview me.
Okay.
You're like, fun.
Ask the question. Okay, I love this.
Ask me a question, Katie.
So fun. Absolutely. So Emily, now that we got to the core root belief, which is extremely powerful and very perfectly timed with what humanity's experienced, will you share with us your aha moment that came and the insights that came around like looking back on your life and what was really happening, the more accurate view now that you've dissolved this view and you were able to go into your higher self view of the humans in your life? Can you share the more accurate view that you experienced?
Okay.
And how that touched you? Yeah.
So basically one of the questions that I ask myself is this true? So does this equal that? Like, does somebody correcting me equal I'm bad and wrong? And when I get the truth, when I can see that from a higher perspective, that's a no. It's an obvious no. That does not mean this, right? It's just that's what I was making it mean in my consciousness. So when I can go into, okay, no, that's not true, then I get access to the actual truth, right? And that brings me into a higher level of perception. So now I can see throughout my life, I look back and I can see all of the times where I was so-called corrected, but in my mind, I was being criticized, right? But let's say corrected. And I can see that the people who were correcting me, maybe not always, and maybe not always perfectly, they were actually coming from a place of like wanting to gift me something and assist me in some way. And it was more of like a guidance. It was more of a sharing of wisdom. It was more of an offering. And the way that my system received that gift or information was not a true reflection of what was being offered to me. And so I can see how I reacted a lot throughout my life, and with rebellion, with a rebellious nature, or just like not like unappreciative towards that. And almost, and at some points, like resentful or hurt, by that. And when I got access to the truth of what's going on underneath the surface, right? The programming, I can see that my experience, or my lived experience, or my interpretation of what was happening was inaccurate. And there's ways that I could have responded differently throughout my life, and that may have changed certain things, right? It might have made my relationships better. It might have changed the course of my direction in some ways, and at the same time, it's all perfect, of course, but there was no awareness of like what's underneath that strong reaction and that activation to those things, which always is shame, And with that awareness, I just, yeah, I had this like aha moment, and it was really like, it was really beautiful. It was really beautiful. And I feel like that brings me to a resolution of some kind, you know. And now I can really appreciate the people that I can see throughout my life who showed up in that way, and understand the truth of the matter and where they're coming from, versus, you know, holding any grudges or not that I'm doing that, but like holding any grudges or resentments or unforgiveness or hurt or pain or shame, you know, to be seen a certain way. And that's really the kicker, right? When you get to the point where it's like, you know, you can accept like, oh, they see me a certain way, or, you know, they're relating to me a certain way, or they said this to me and they said this about me or whatever, and there's nothing. You know, it's like, oh, okay. And that's where, you know, okay, there's nothing for that, there's nowhere for that stuff to stick, right? If it's like people are able to have their opinions and perspectives and perceptions of you or whatever, judgments of you, and there's like nothing. It's like, okay, that's where you're free of the shame. That's where, you know, you don't really have anything left to play with.
That sounds like liberation.
It
That sounds
is.
like
That's
the
where we're going.
true form of liberation we're actually searching for is inside of ourselves, not outside of ourselves.
Exactly.
Oh my God, so well said. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. And I really relate. And I hope many of the viewers, people watching relate as well to that, this story, and have had some sort of experience of that liberation already in their life. And if not, are actively seeking that, because for the rest of our life, we may have naysayers, we may have judgers, we may have criticizers around us, possibly. And how freeing is it to not have to worry about that, to have to control their perception, to have to, you know, like all the control and energy that goes into trying to manage not feeling the hurt of it. And yet they could criticize us now and be like, okay, that's your opinion, that, you know, and that's coming through your lens, but that's not my opinion of me. Whoa.
Yeah.
Right. And that's, you know, one of my other questions, she was like, how do you feel then, now that you get to see from the perspective of your higher self, how do you feel? So say someone was criticizing you, like say someone was bringing energy that wasn't actually just an offering of a gesture of like, hey, you could do it this way, and that might bring more efficiency, or hey, if you did it this way, this would feel better. If it was like more coming from their like angst and their like critical nature, like,
Yeah.
How do you feel, like knowing all the stages you went through before, the emotions, like, yeah, do you want to just like walk us through that sort of feel, like now feeling like, I'm not bad and wrong. I can kind of see what's happening on their end, but like, what would be different?
Yeah, like for me, it's more just like realizing like however the relating is a projection of their own shame. It's a projection of their own shame. So because I've experienced it and because I've gone through it, then I can have compassion for them, right? Because I've been there too, and I know what that's like. But it's not something that actually has a place to stick inside of me, or a place to like activate me, because I've like looked at that deeply, and I understand things from a higher perspective, and I can see it and connect to it from that higher perspective now that I've done that. Now that's not always the case, of course. I'm not always able to like connect into the higher perspective of things and to kind of be neutral when that's there. It depends on like who's saying it, you know, how much I value their perspective or the way that they relate to me. So there's always our edges, and there's always our like major challenges. And there's always medium challenges, and those are the ones that are kind of like our practice, right? So yeah, I'd say when that work has been done and cleared, like some of these things we work with ongoingly, and that's just like what we came to do, and it's not like a one-time thing, and that's just kind of like what we agreed to. But yeah,
But
once
playing in the what if, just want to specify. So I know that, like, I'm not saying, you just came to this realization this weekend, like there's could be still remnants and offshoots and some roots
right, yeah.
still in your psyche, but I'm not talking about that. I'm saying
Okay.
the day, because it will happen in this life, where shame doesn't exist in your psyche. How can you imagine responding from that place? Just because I believe, part of our work is to imagine us without this belief running, right? So like,
Yeah.
so
It's just love and neutrality. It's just
perfect.
loving neutrality. It's a neutral energetic space. So it's internally it would occur as like peace. And just love and care for another person, and that not wavering because of how they're being, and that's the epitome of like Christ consciousness, right? It's like we are embodying, well, we're moving towards embodiment of Christ consciousness, and that is the ultimate love, right? It's like total accepting of that being as a divine being, and knowing like they are God, they were created perfectly by God and all of that, and to relate to them like that no matter how they're showing up. And that's liberation, right? Because that's a peace and love in our system when we're in relationship to others in our world, and it's peace and loving towards other people. There's no triggers, there's no activations, there's no need to like
Mm-hmm. And
retaliate.
and knowing your, like your Akashic record divine mission that you shared with me, being divine love, like that is what, like, you will be free of this because you came here on mission to move through that and anchor that love in your being and hold that resonance for all beings.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks for doing the work.
So fun. So fun.
Continue to show up in that incredible resonance, which I already experienced from you. And it's like, again, different players have different roles. Like you and I are not instigators. So if every human in our life was someone to poke at us, it would be exhausting. We need people who are on board, who are not just to poke at us and to like be the instigators, So
yeah, exactly.
And even with the ones who are instigating, they still experience that in you, because that is like, that is an essence that you hold. And now you're just going to be able to do it even more and more consistently and more consistently, and for yourself first and foremost, and then everyone. So yay.
Exactly. Thanks, Katie.
Oh my God. It's like,
yeah, it's fun.
And that's like the power of what, 3 days? Or like, that was just one day. That was
that was just one day.
That was one day. That like, you went from this to this, like, and that's, that is just like.
And I want to touch on like what happened after that too, because I had a profound experience when that cleared, when that shifted.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, once that energy gets engulfed in love and appreciation, or that program or whatever, it transmutes into like a neutrality. And like I had an amazing experience, because what happened was it was like the clouds parted and my being just blasted open, and I felt this energy like pour into me, like really, like, you can imagine like a little line of energy, but this was not that. It was like this, like a lot, it was like really a lot of energy that poured in through my head and like down into my body and anchored in my like in my seat, like the bottom of my core, I guess you could say. I felt it come all the way in. It was just like blasted my heart open, blasted my body open. And I just felt like, when you're just like a radiating beam of light or like sun, and it was like rainbow golden light. And to me, that represents Christ energy. And that just came through my being, and it was just like, and I just felt like on top of the world and loving. And like I said at the beginning, I was going in there with like kind of closed constricted heart space and like not really feeling connected to myself and my higher self, and just kind of in like a blah state. And when I had that experience, it was like so beautiful and so profound. And I don't know if anyone else notices this, but for me, I notice that when I have an opening of that nature, or like a reconnection or an embodiment of more of who I am, that's what this is, right? It's like we're literally moving this stuff out of the way so we can bring more of who we are into our body. And that's what embodiment is. And maybe that's something else we can talk about too, if we have time. But essentially, yeah, like that's the point of this whole work, is like embodiment. And when that happens, I notice like my voice actually changes. Like there's like a deepening, there's like more, there's just more there. And we know that like our voice is like the tone of us, like our soul. And so it's beautiful to notice that when we're speaking, it's like, oh, where did that come from? And singing, like I've noticed this ongoingly throughout the years of doing this work, which is every time there's a major shift where I'm opening an embodiment, there's more access to different, tones and frequencies of my voice, which is, yeah, it's representing that that there's more of me here, which is really cool. So yeah.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
More of your multidimensional self. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when reading Tom Canyon's messages or writing around when he started becoming a channel for the Hathors. And he was hitting octaves and creating sounds that he never, ever was able to create before. And he opened himself up to receive. And the first sounding that I listened to of his was Restoration. And I bawled my eyes out because on a cellular level, I heard the vibration of love. I heard and felt the vibration of God's love.
Wow.
And it was the first time ever. Like I came really close in a partnership. His level of unconditional love was so beautiful. The way he served my feminine, the way he supported me. And when I put the earphones on him and he's like, what is going on? You just need to listen. And he also bawled, and we both were just touched through voice. And the more I work with this beautiful human, the more I am learning that it's through my voice that I'm going to also be on mission. And so I love what you said about that, because I was always afraid to speak publicly. I was afraid to even sing public, like all these things around voice, but it's through the voice that we can also touch just by vibration. And he wasn't singing words. He was sounding.
Yeah.
He was sounding vibrations that I've never heard on earth, that were coming for 12th dimension and coming through his being here on earth, like really dense dimensions. So,
we're composed of light and sound. So these are the most like potent and powerful tools, or
to create reality.
Things that we can work with and play with. And I mean, we're literally just working with the combination of creation, the matter that's
raw materials.
Yeah, exactly.
So in a way, we are fine tuning our raw materials to be of even greater beauty and resonance and vibration that will like right the ship of this inverted matrix.
Yeah.
And anchor, divine order, divine beauty, divine like cellular structure that feels. And when we're in that divine state and alignment, we just naturally feel so good. It's just a good feeling, and it. So I love that. Yeah.
It's just openness. It's really just openness. We go through life and we put up so much protection and barriers and walls, and I'm definitely a person who's done that, right? Because it's like the more sensitive you are, the more protection you on some level feel like you need. And so many of our sensitive ones haven't had the greatest life experiences. And it's not even that maybe we haven't had the greatest life experiences. A lot of people have chosen, a lot of like sensitive souls have chosen to transmute a lot, which then leads to those life experiences where it's designed to bring that forward. But then there's also the sensitive ones, like it could be really something not that bad that really makes an impact. not that bad, meaning like, you know, the subjective nature of our experiences, looking at that from kind of like a, I guess, an objective perspective, like we could say there's lots of things that are worse that could happen. But let's say like if you're really sensitive, like even even like a parent who doesn't pay enough attention to you or something like that could like really like traumatize you or something, you know, because maybe you go into like feelings of neglect, and then that leads to like the shame of like, oh, I'm not lovable because I'm not being, you know, my parents not paying enough attention to me, you know what I mean? So I'm just
Yeah.
putting that out there as like subjective kind of reality experiences can lead
Yeah.
to
Oh yeah, it
different
doesn't
levels
take
of
it
trauma.
doesn't take a huge overt abuse to
Yeah,
create damage in the psyche, or not damage, but like, you know, shift the psyche to shame. Like it doesn't take much. And
yeah,
I would even go further. It's not just sensitive souls, it's all of us. Like we all are
yeah,
privy or like vulnerable
yeah,
to feeling that. It's just how we interpreted it. Some people
yes,
interpret, I'm always fascinating, like two people in the same household, one person interpreted that they're bad and wrong, and the other one was just like interpreted in a completely different way. So they have different belief systems about themselves, right?
mm-hmm.
And maybe even further on a soul level, we actually chose our belief systems we want to play with already. And it was
For
just,
sure.
the parents just sort of turned it on so that we could, okay, that's what I'm working with now in this life.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah. So it's, but whatever that is, I want to go back to I want to stay in nitty gritty in this chat because I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
the juices, the embodiment of like dense energy. The reality of embodying dense energy is that we have a vessel, we have this body, and it's like a barrel, just call it a barrel. And if it is full with shame, like 100% full with shame and limiting programs and limiting beliefs, there is physically no room for your light to enter. And
mm-hmm.
so as we decrease that barrel, one belief at a time or one instant at a time, and we dissolve that, also on a toxic level. So when we nutritionally detox our barrel as well, we allow more light into our cellular matrix so that it
Mm-hmm.
can transform and transmute out of the lower density carbon-based 2-strand DNA body that we're living in and evolve into our higher frequency body, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in
Mm-hmm.
that state, it does feel different. There is a
Yeah,
lightness. And there are people who are full of like what, you know, you could call it clay, like they're just dense clay and the light can't penetrate.
mm-hmm.
It can't penetrate. And it might not be this lifetime for them that they will
Right,
empty that at all. And that's, I'm sure some of us have lived those lives. You know what I mean? Like I'm sure all of us who are here have also lived those lives where we're just dense with clay. And
mm-hmm.
you and I, and a whole bunch of us on planet Earth spread around the earth are like dissolving that density so that we can anchor. And what you were saying is it's just openness. There's truth in that, because in the
Mm-hmm.
automatic dissolving, there's space, and what automatically comes in, you didn't ask now, okay, so I'm ready. Where are you? It was like, boom,
Yeah,
it is right here. You know, I want people to know that our soul is like right here waiting and watching, ready
mm-hmm.
when we choose in our free will to clear the path for it to anchor. It's like, yes, it's just a yes. It's like, that is our soul contract with our soul. Like we
Yeah,
came here to embody our soul. So
yeah,
that is so exciting in a way, because it's like, we don't have to go find ourselves. We're not finding ourselves. We are becoming more of ourselves by
right.
dissolving what isn't ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and on what I was just saying about like the walls and the things that the protection and the armor that we build up against feeling, right? Because again, it's like we're sensitive and there's a lot of things that we don't want to feel, and it's painful to feel, and sometimes, you know, and we haven't really
Yeah.
learned emotional intelligence, let's say. When we are courageous enough to break down those walls, and that takes time and that takes effort and energy and courage, right? And usually somebody to hold our hands or direct and guide us while we do that, because it's a process. That's when we can like open those heart floodgates. And when we have an open heart, that's where the happiness is, that's where the joy is, that's where the bliss is, that's where the ecstasy is, that's where the freedom is, that's where the creation is, that's where love is, you know, that's where peace, that's where That's where everything is. When our heart is open, it's like there's nothing but generosity. There's nothing but abundance. There's nothing but all the frequencies of life, right? And our society, our life, this planet that we're living on is designed to just, traumatize, wound, victimize, all of these things that will keep us layering on that armor to protect ourselves from feeling the pain of what it is to just be here. Right? And most of us don't want to feel that. Most of us want nothing to do with that. Most of us can't even feel that. There's such a disconnection from that there's almost like a numbness or dissociation, right? And so that's if that's there, then that's where you got to start. And I know that's where I was. I had disconnected from feeling a lot. And right now, like I've been going through I don't know, like maybe like a 6 or 7 year process of dissolving all those barriers that I had to actually feeling my heart and feeling things, my emotions, essentially. And there's a lot of pain there that needs to be felt too, to move through and then get to the other side, which is that joy, which is that beauty, which is that life, and most people, like you said, probably wouldn't really ever be able to get there. But right now, that's the journey and path that we're on. Like if you've chosen that ascension path, which is this path, it is dissolving the pain and shame, it is dissolving the things in the way of having that open heart, then you'll be confronted in these kinds of ways as a gift to direct your attention to the things that need to be loved up and transmuted and dissolved. And that way you will begin to sense and remember and feel the beauty of that expanded open heart. And that's the thing that's going to bring happiness and joy to your life. And it's not so funny because, right, we're always like, oh, we gotta have this, we gotta have that. If my life was like this, we'd be happy. If my life was like that, I'd be happy. But really all it is the happiness is just an open heart. And I learned that from my ayahuasca experience actually in 2018, because that just blasts your heart open too, right? And I was like, whoa, like I'm happy about everything. Like there's nothing that could like crash me down in any way. And it was just because like my heart was completely open and it felt so fucking good. It was blissful. It was like, oh my God, I've never felt this level of openness before. And that was huge for me because I realized, wow, there's so many blocks to feeling this on a day-to-day like level. But yeah, that's just like kind of it's like an experience that sits as like a placeholder kind of thing, right? It's like, yeah, that's possible. Living like that is possible. That's actually how we're designed to live, right? And so right now we're doing the, like, what we've been talking about. We're doing the clearing work to remove those distortions, remove those inversions, remove the traumas and the woundings and all the stories, all the programs that keep us shut down there, keep us blocked. But we're all going there. Well, those have chosen, I should say.
Those who have chosen it. Others are choosing a different experience and they want to be there, and that's fine.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Yeah. That's
everyone beautiful. It's like like Jillian always says, player's choice. Player's choice. There's this and there's this. Player's choice.
Free will down
like, choose your own adventure.
Yeah, choose your own adventure. And often free will can be hijacked by the ego. So it's really fun to start to be aware of like when your free will is hijacked by the ego. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of outsourcing and dependency beliefs that also need to be dissolved around where true happiness comes from. Because as we see it, and they've done so many studies that show once you get all that money from that, whatever, you played the lottery, that person goes back to that same set point of happiness because there's nothing external that can do the internal work.
Mhm.
And there is a level of, money and reality that does bring happiness. Like if we're, living on the street and doing this work, I'd be much happier in my home doing it. Right. So there's a
Oh,
reality
for
there
sure.
as well.
Yeah.
But like, so much amount of money and this type of dream over here and there, I've tried it. I've blown up my life and moved to Hawaii. I've blown up my life and moved here. I've tried the grass is greener. It never works. All my shit comes with me and I have to keep looking at it. So it's
Mhm.
like, thank you, COVID, in a way, hunkered down, can't get on a plane and like just keep doing the work and truly going to be guided when and if it's time to move, when and if it's time to travel to a place because it's going
Mhm.
to serve my best, not because I'm
Mhm.
looking for an escape from the discomfort.
Right.
And that's been really powerful for me in the learning with COVID, is just to like sit, like it's forced me. It's just like, you can't go anywhere, not even a restaurant. You just like sit with yourself. And I'm like, oh, which is the perfect timing because in the evolution of Earth and humanity, these years are imperative for us
Mhm.
who chose this path. There is no dilly-dally. There is no looking here, looking there. It's work time. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
put your face in the mud now. Like, look at your mud, look at your density, do the work, because we
Yeah.
have building to do. We
Yeah.
have on the other side of this, a whole other life to live, right? Of like, what are we building? What are we creating? So we didn't just come to play in the muck. We came to like get to the other side, right? And
Oh,
so
yeah.
for the
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. Well, this is like truly the last stand, and we're like the baby's coming out, the baby's crowning. This is the hard part, you know. But we can't give up now. We can't stop now. It's just
Yeah.
like it's already happening, right? And it's
Yeah.
already done. But yeah,
And
it's like
even though on a
this is the
global,
super intense part right now.
this is super intense and it can be very distracting because on a global level, it looks like we might all be nuked and die. And so, there's different storylines that are happening, but we also want to remember that there is a separation of those storylines and there are pockets of us creating the new world right now on Earth. And that will continue to happen as the old dies off and dissolves. So where you put your attention matters. And I know, as being an easily distracted human with a lot of energy, this whole like zeroing in and just where my focus goes, my attention, my energy, my transformation goes. So it's like, do your best if you find that's draining you and dragging you down, to not get caught up in the doomsday of what's happening globally, and to just keep focusing on yourself, because that's all you're responsible for. And, one of my teachers made a really good point, like, okay, Katie, so what is it? So first of all, you could use it as a trigger. So if I'm being triggered by world events, I can use it. And I got to the place of, I feel that safety is outside of myself and out of my control. That's one of my main beliefs, that, and helplessness. So I'm helpless, and safety and security is outside of myself and out of my control. So she's like, great. So use the world events to dissolve what feels. And now I had these incredible conversations yesterday with 2 different men about the state of the world. And I had a completely empowering and different stance than I have not too long ago, because of dealing and dissolving this density in me that is not true. To the point that I actually feel, and I'm not making this up, I actually feel like if it is in my highest destiny to be taken off planet or to leave this body, I'm okay with that. So not holding the fear of death is actually allowing me to be present in my current life and not fear that it's all going to be taken away, because if that is in my highest destiny, then I will trust that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of freedom there. There's a lot of
For sure.
liberation. There's a lot of, so now I can keep my heart open today instead of worrying about, all the horrible things that might come my way. And and so what this teacher said, which was really important for me to hear, which was, during the Holocaust, not all Jewish people were rounded up and thrown into concentration camps. Not all people in concentration camps suffered to the degree of others and died, right? Like there was all different experiences within one big storyline. And that is going to happen, and it's already happening to all of us. So because someone else's bank account freezes doesn't mean that's what's in your highest and best, and doesn't mean that that's what's coming for you. And I know that the more I focus on what I do desire, I have the power to continue to create my highest destiny. So I just wanted to share that, because that was very helpful for me to hear. It's like, no. If the banks can close one, they can close any, and that's going to be my reality, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, nope, It's actually doesn't have to be that way.
Well, one of the things that I find really quite profound with what we learned this weekend, well, I think I've heard this before, but essentially our souls are orchestrating things about 80% of the time, and about 18 to 20% of the time is where the law of attraction and law of karma, cause and effect, whatever, resonance, the laws of energetic resonance come in and play. So we're literally, we've got about 20% where like it is the law of attraction, it is the energetic laws are at play, and then 80% are like, it's like if our soul has designed it that way, that's going to be in service to us, right? If our soul has chosen this type of experience for us, it's for our highest growth and our highest good. And there will be no avoiding that, no matter how much you do your affirmations or energetic attunements and alignments and visualizations and vision boards and stuff like that. You know, like that stuff is important and that stuff can be effective, and your frequency obviously matters. And you know, let's just take that into perspective. It affects and influences our experience about 20% versus 80%, which is, you know, we don't know. We don't know what our soul has planned for us. We're just like, okay, that's where trust and surrender and faith come in, because
that's the faith piece. So I would say, that's the biggest piece I've noticed from doing this work. And like within 48 hours after being back from our weekend, I've had every single potential thing that would trigger me show up. Everything. Every single thing. Man, money, security, safety, work, like my body, everything. And I'm like, oh shit.
Gonna react, Katie? Gonna react, Katie? Gonna react, Katie?
Actually, to show me how much I've dissolved. Because I was like, I'm holding a completely different resonance. Even my birthday, I'm turning 40, and this desire to be like seen and celebrated by my family and like validated and all these things, like all of it is like coming inside from within, you know? What a gift. And also I can see that like I've dissolved so much of my limiting beliefs that my emotional body is not being activated. I'm holding a much higher perspective. I'm able to see through the eyes of my soul. I have incredible amount of faith. And given everything that just showed up in 48 hours, most people would be like, what? How? Because that's in service to show me what I'm no longer holding. And then now my life, even this morning, something showed up to show me like, see, you're not holding that. So now we get to bring in the higher resonance opportunities.
Beautiful.
It's like that quick for me now.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, I think it's important for you to share your helplessness experience, but I don't think maybe we'll do that
I think next time.
Yeah. Let's leave that for next time, and we'll go into that if it's, you know, if it's active and relevant next time. But I think that's a great story as well, an experience to share. But yeah, I think let's kind of
close it. Let's wrap it.
Let's wrap it up, baby.
Wrap.
All right. So we hope that you got some insights or new perspectives, or you can relate to some of the stuff we shared in some way. And, you know, always feel free to share, interact, engage, and we're happy to answer questions and lend any support as well. So if you feel inspired to connect, please do so. And if not, hopefully we'll see you next time, and we'll be back again with another episode next week. All right.
Yeah, and thank you for
take good care, everybody.
Yeah. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.